Hey guys, Dave Lolonic, Sticky RX. Once again, another video on my 98 Ferrari 355 F1 GTS. This video is the assembly of the clutch, pressure plate, and pumpkin. I want to make note that on the 95 versus my 98, on the Voith flywheel, the screws that hold one of the plates in are actually another rib Torx type fastener versus the hex head, and they appear to have little washers under them. Okay guys, I'm going to continue with the Voith flywheel assembly, the clutch disc, pressure plate, and the rear pumpkin. I'm going to continue with this assembly. So I've got a new bearing here for the pumpkin. This is an SKF battery, but I did get it from, SKF bearing, and I did get it from Ferrari. And we'll go ahead and put this in here. I've already checked this. This is not a press fit. It is a very tight slip fit, so I should be able to just drop it in like so. Okay, so now that that's in, I'm gonna set this up on the arbor press, and I'm gonna put the Voith flywheel into the pumpkin because you need to press it into this diameter. And I've got these handy screws I used before to help me lift it and set it in, but I've got to get this set up on the arbor press, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I have the pumpkin positioned on the arbor press, and I have a block underneath that's making contact with the bearing races to support it so that I'm not pushing on the casting at all or the studs. So it's fully supported underneath. I'll double check. Yep, all good. Now I'll take the flywheel and sneak it in there. Not the greatest setup, but it'll work. And what I've done is I've applied some LPS2 to the inside race of that bearing to help guide and just, have the press be a little bit slippery, if you will. So I've got these two screws in here I can use to kind of pre-align this. Again, I like the arbor press because I can feel it. I could use the hydraulic press, but then you don't have as good a feel. So I've got a block here to push on that'll make contact on the bearing race. Okay, so at this point, I might need another block here. Yeah, I'm gonna need another. Okay, I've got a couple other blocks on here just to space this up. Nice and easy, right down. So that unit is pressed in. I'll pull the blocks out. Very, very light press. Now I can pull this right off and move forward. So I've got the Voith flywheel assembly into the pumpkin, and now I'm gonna assemble the friction plate, the clutch, and the pressure plate on here. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm just going to loosely screw in this retaining nut. This needs thread locker and it needs a lot of torque that I'm gonna do once it's in the car. So for right now, I'm just gonna lift this up. I should have brought it here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do before getting started here is I'm going to just wipe, I got some isopropyl alcohol. I'm gonna wipe the flywheel surface with this to make sure there's no oil on the flywheel face. These are black oxided from Hill Engineering, so I'm actually gonna spray a little isopropyl alcohol in there and clean off any of this residual oil that's on the black oxide. Okay, Okay, so I've wiped this nice and dry, and I've got the pressure plate. I'm going to do the same thing. Just wipe that with a little isopropyl alcohol. And I'm even going to skim over the friction plate very lightly. Okay, so I've got this Hill Engineering guide tool. So this goes in the pilot bearing, and this is to center the friction clutch disc. Okay, so that holds its center while we put the pressure plate on. So I've got the pressure plate here. Now, they put a mark on this for the balance, and you're supposed to diametrically oppose it with the balance of the flywheel, but I didn't have the flywheel rebalanced, and that Hill Engineering is a nice machined unit that's apparently balanced. So I'm kind of risking this. I don't think anybody's balancing it. I talked to a couple tech friends and nobody's really doing it. So we're just gonna go ahead and install it. Criticize, but it is what it is. They tell me that there won't be any problem. Okay, so right now the pressure plate will be proud sitting on the friction plate until we run some screws down and compress it a little. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have 3 socket head cap screws from my shop that are a little longer than the factory fasteners. These are 45 millimeters versus 35. And if I tried using these right away, there's really only a thread or 2 engagement, and I don't want to try pulling this down with such light engagement. So I'm going to use these temporary fasteners instead. So I'll put them in 3 opposing or equally spaced holes. There's 9 bolts in this pressure plate. Okay, so I used the 3 screws and I looked with a flashlight, and it's not pulled completely down, but I want to be careful with only the 3 screws. So I'm going to start putting in the OEM screws and to pull it completely down. So these are an M6 with a lock washer underneath it. Of course, they're going to get thread lock, and they get 13 Newton meters of torque. Okay, so only 3 remain. What I'm going to do is now start tightening up these before torque, just to pull that pressure plate down. So they all feel seated. I'll have a look with the flashlight here. It's not the easiest thing to see, but it does look like it's down all the way. So what I'm going to do now is remove those temporary fasteners. Okay, now I'm going to put the remaining 3 OEM fasteners in, of course, with the thread lock. Okay, these can go to torque now, 13 Newton meters. Let me get my Sharpie to mark. I'm going to start with the center of all 3 patterns. Okay, it's 1. Okay, there you go. So that's all torqued. This is ready to go, ready to install back in the car. I'm going to leave that guide in until I get it home and get ready to put it back in the car. Thanks for watching.